All right. So the sickness hasn't totally set in. It hasn't even dulled my senses. Like, actually, it kind of sharpened them. I'm not exactly sure when the idea came to mind, but once it did, it was really hard to just get rid of it. Now, let me just clear all this up by saying it wasn't that I had any, ill thoughts towards the man. He was amazing. He was really kind to me. It's not like I wanted his money. It's just, I think it was the eye. I think it was the eye. I mean, it was weird. It was like a pale blue color. There was a film over it. I mean, every time he looked at me, it made my skin crawl. I mean, I had to get rid of him. Like, he creeped me out. It was weird, you know? It was strange. You can call me mad all you want. I know I'm not mad. You want to know why I know I'm not mad? Because mad people have no thought process to their actions. Once I figured out what I needed to do, y'all should have seen me. I was plotting every single move, every single detail. It was all calculated, and I was never kinder to that man than the week before I killed him. I was ready. So, for the 7 nights leading up to the final night that I killed him, I would go into the old man's room at midnight, every single night, same time, every day. I would take a dark lantern. I'd kind of open the door really softly, quietly, gently, push it open, making sure it's not creaking. And then I stick the lantern in, peek my head around the corner, and I just watch him, see how he's breathing, check and make sure he's still sleeping. The thing is, I couldn't do it because his eye was closed. I mean, this evil eye that's like tormenting me every single day. It's like I can't do what I need to do until he can see me. Like, I would call him by his name the next morning. I'd go to his room and be like, "How did you rest? How was your sleep?" And he'd never know I was there. Like, he was too proud to even think for a second I was coming into his room at midnight, every night. Now, on that 8th night, there was something different. I mean, I'd never been more confident but cautious than I was that night. I mean, I don't know, I could feel the power. Like, it was amazing. I could barely contain my triumph. The feeling was palpable. I was going into the room just like I had every single night. Slowly, but I mean, a watch's hand was moving faster than mine. I opened the door, slowly, trying to tiptoe in. And I think he heard me open the door. I think he heard the door creak when I pushed it ever so slightly. And I saw him sit up. And he called out, "Who's there?" And I froze, not because I was scared, but I just wanted to hold that moment. And I stood there and I waited for him maybe to lie down. But he didn't lie down. Now, I knew the room was pitch black, so I wasn't concerned about the old man seeing me. He couldn't. But he didn't move. I think I stood in that doorway for about an hour, not even moving a muscle. I think we were waiting for like one of us to make the first move. I think he knew I was there. Because when I heard that groan of mortal terror. Now, this wasn't a groan of pain or grief. No, no. This was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the groan well. I knew exactly what the old man was feeling. Part of me even kind of pitied him. But not that much. I knew he'd been awake the whole time. Ever since I first opened the door, that first little creak, I heard him turn. I knew he was up. He was trying to comfort himself, saying, oh, it's just the wind in the chimney. It's just a mouse scurrying on the floor. He and I both knew it was no mouse scurrying on the floor. All that comforting he was trying to do was in vain. Though he couldn't see or hear me, he knew death, me. He knew and he could feel I was coming. I had waited long enough. I was done standing there in silence. I pushed that door open, still slowly. But that ray of light landed on that blue eye, and I grew so furious beyond words. That thing staring at me in the darkness. It was done. Now, I told you guys, I'm not mad. If anything, I'm perfectly sane, but just with extremely acute senses. I mean, in that moment, I could hear the beating of his heart. That old man's terror was so extreme. It was like a drum. That's how loud the beating of his heart was. It was so loud. I thought the neighbor was going to hear. I was ready. I had to do it now. I threw the lantern open. He only screamed once. Just one yell. I dragged him to the floor quickly. I couldn't help it. I was so furious. I had to stop that sound. That thumping. I had to stop it. Immediately. I pulled the bed on top of him, and I just pressed. 3 minutes went by. 4 minutes went by. And then the beating stopped. It finally stopped. If you still think I'm mad by now, need I go into the precautions I took to make sure he was fully dead? I mean, I checked the heart. There's no pulse. Stone dead. Then I dismembered his body, cut the head off, the arms, the legs. I placed them in the floorboards. I placed them so cleverly, like no one would be able to come in and even tell that I had moved them. I even made sure there was no blood. I had left no trace of my crime, there would have been no way for anyone to catch me. But a neighbor had heard the shriek, and the police came to the house just to check things out. And I smiled. What did I have to worry about? I mean, all my troubles were taken care of. I need not worry. I told the officers that the old gentleman was out of the country and I was just watching the house for him. I mean, I made sure I was as normal as ever. You know, they walked around, they checked the house out, they were pleased with everything. My manner didn't throw them off, but I felt myself getting pale. I mean, obviously not literally pale, but I felt myself feeling sick. And I don't know if they could tell, but I was shaken. I wanted them to leave because I was hearing a ringing in my ear. A dull ringing. It was growing louder and louder by the minute. And I knew exactly what it was. I knew it was the heart. It was the beating of the heart. My breathing was rapid. I felt like my throat was clogging up. I couldn't contain the frustration I was feeling. How were they not hearing this beating? It was so loud. I was swinging chairs. My voice was elevated, and they just sat there, smiling pleasantly and conversing about horses and tracks and everyday things. They didn't even notice my state of being. How did they not know? They had to know. They had to know. They were trying to trap me. They were trying to catch me. They knew. How could they not know? How could they not? I gave in. I couldn't do it. I tore open the floorboards and I told them, there is the corpse. I did it. I killed him. I killed him. I killed him to be rid of that and now I am cursed with hearing the beating of his heart. How did they not hear it? I'm not mad. I didn't want to see that I didn't want to hear the sound. I'm not mad. How did they not hear? How did they not hear?